Welcome to IoT Leadership Matters, where we tap into the wisdom of leaders, leadership experts, great thinkers and inspiring humans. And for our first session, we are looking at resilience. I'm joined by Dawn Morgan, resilience coach, rapid transformational therapist and hypnotherapist. Dawn is also part of the ACF family. She's a company staff officer in Hampshire and Isle of Wight ACF. Dawn, welcome. This is the first interview that we've done, and it's really exciting. I just want to put this into context, the reason why we're talking about resilience this morning. It's because we're recording this right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a period of time where we all really need resilience, but I'm not talking about resilience now. It's a time where we can kind of focus in on it and I suppose practice our resilience during this period, but what I want to talk about is resilience now, and then obviously resilience moving forward, so that we've got that foundation of resilience for the rest of our lives. So I think the first question to ask you is, what is resilience?
Hi, it's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. It's about your bounce back ability, so how quickly you bounce back from whatever's happened.
Okay, I really love that word, and it's that bounce back ability again and again and again and again, and building that kind of personal strength, I suppose. So, what makes us resilient?
It starts with understanding how our reality is created.
Okay, that sounds really interesting. So, can you expand a little bit more on that? What does that mean?
Yeah, well, life happens through us; it's not to us. We create our own reality, and when we can really see that, our life changes. So let me explain. Our mind's job is to protect us, to take us towards pleasure and take us away from pain. It's not to make us happy. Our mind is not there to make us our lives happy. It's to keep us, really, it is just to keep us alive. So it responds to the words and pictures that we provide it with. So if we are talking about if we're always telling ourselves negative things, then negative things will happen.
Yeah.
So when we change the words, we change our reality. And I know that sounds really easy. So let's talk about what we always do.
Okay.
We look for danger in our everyday lives, and that's quite instinctual. That's what we used to do when we lived in caves. Every time we stepped out of that cave, there was danger. So our lives are actually run with our subconscious mind. That's why you get those instantaneous feelings every now and then. That's why you can drive to work and not even notice the journey. You're not consciously aware of the journey.
Those are the weirdest days, when you arrive at wherever it is that you want to go to, and you go, I don't even remember how I got here, and it's quite frightening, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And that's where our subconscious mind is the mind that drives us, that controls our lives, that creates our reality in some ways. And we think it's our conscious mind, but it's not. Our subconscious mind is keeping us breathing and walking, when actually our mind is elsewhere. And there's one particular book that's useful to read if anybody's interested. It's called The Chimp Paradox by
Love it.
I know, it's great book. So let's look at the words that we use on an everyday in our everyday lives. Because we're sort of self-programmed to see danger, we tend to elaborate the not so nice things and then dumb down the really good things. So we would be saying, oh, the traffic this morning nearly killed me. It was just, awful. It was terrible. The kids are driving me insane. We use all these elaborate words to really extend and exaggerate our feelings when it's bad things. But then when we've got something really good, somebody will say, oh, how was that? Oh yeah, it was fine. And we,
isn't it?
That's what we do as humans. We dumb down all the really good things, and then we exaggerate all the bad things. And when your mind is constantly hearing those things, it believes them. In the same way that, if we look at, horrible things in the world where, people are actually trying to hurt people, they're constantly drip feeding them bad things. And before you know it, those words become your reality, because it gets embedded in your subconscious mind. So our beliefs, and that creates beliefs. So what we do, a good example is we view things, as I said, through our own lenses, So a lot of people don't like needles, for example. So
I remember that as a kid, distinctly remember that as a child.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we think that it's the needle that actually is causing us the pain, because we know we've got to go and have blood taken, we know we've got to have an injection or whatever, and so we then get stressed out, we don't want to do it. But let me ask you, does the drug addict fear needles in the same way?
And that's so interesting, because I was just thinking that, when I was a kid, and I can see that now in my 5-year-old, that we were absolutely terrified of having injections, terrified. And I can remember these awful occasions. But when I then look sort of 37 years later, when I had my daughter, and I was in and out of hospital as we are, lots of blood taken, all of those kind of things. And because it was part of the process of something wonderful that was about to happen, it wasn't as bad.
No. So it's your thinking around those things that actually create your reality.
Yes.
So if we learn to actually look at what is causing our feelings, it goes back to thoughts, which can come from beliefs. So instead of looking at our actions, so you have this cycle. So you have a belief that creates a thought. The thought creates an action or a behavior, and then those actions and behaviors feed back into the belief. So if we instead of looking at what our actions are and trying to change our actions, which takes an awful lot of willpower in most instances, take it back and look at the beliefs. Why am I doing this? And what is it I believe that is driving this? Because if we can change what our subconscious mind believes, then that will change our thoughts and our feelings and our actions.
Okay, so that centres around that big word that we see a huge amount at the moment. It centres around mindset, doesn't it? Can you talk about mindset, please, and how we adjust our mindset, what that means, and how this taps into resilience?
Absolutely. So you imagine you're going to go and buy a new car, okay, and you've been looking at, for example, a yellow Mini. Not that many people buy yellow Minis, but let's just use that as an example.
I've had I'm the one.
So when you are looking at this new car and you've been researching it and you've popped down to the garage, and then all of a sudden you see yellow Minis everywhere. Another example is when you or your partner or a friend is pregnant. All of a sudden you just see pregnant women everywhere, because that information is in your mindset. If you look around you, there are millions of pieces of information all around you, but you zone in on certain things. And that's what mindset is about. It's about understanding where your mind is focusing, the really important things. So, and your mindset will be different with the same situation on different days, because you're actually focusing on different things. And it's quite interesting. It's as humans, we always judge because we're trying to make sense of things. And if we can't make sense of things, we make it up. We create stories to try and understand things. So when you understand that, it makes it a lot easier, because you can sort of think, oh yeah, here I go again. I'm making stories up. I'm creating something where there isn't anything. But if you actively, consciously focus on finding the good things, finding the positive things, it becomes more of your reality, because you're not focusing on the bad things. Thoughts come and go. So just grab hold of the ones that really serve you.
So one of the things that I've done for a long time, and I found it quite difficult at first, was first thing in the morning, I have a gratitude journal. So I write 3 things down that I'm looking forward to in the day, and then at the end of the day, I write down 3 things, and it can be just the tiniest thing, like I've just made myself a really good cup of coffee, and at the moment, it's very difficult because our world is so small, isn't it? We're stuck inside our houses or wherever it is. So it literally is at the moment. I've made myself a really good coffee, and today I found this pink pen that I've been looking for ages, and it's as daft as it seems. That's what helps me, is to actually get myself into that mindset of writing down the things that I'm grateful for, or that have happened in the day that are positive, as opposed to I'm stuck in the house at the moment.
Yeah, and that has a great effect on you, because what you're doing is you're focusing on what is good and not what is bad.
Yes.
So therefore, the feel good, you know, you're going towards the feel good rather than the feel bad. And if we dwell on the bad feelings and dwell on the bad things, that's where we go. We go down the rabbit hole and we end up in this horrible cycle of not feeling good. So just being consciously aware of what you're thinking about actually helps. And it's like when it becomes normal, it becomes familiar to you to do that. But in the beginning, it's very unfamiliar. So you have to keep doing it.
Okay, so obviously what we're talking about today is resilience. So how does that mindset relate to resilience? How does that changing your mindset, the positive mindset, relate to resilience?
Okay, one of the key things is we think that events and other people can make us feel a particular way.
Yes.
But it doesn't work that way. It's our thoughts around that event or that person. In the same way that, you know, it's like Marmite moments. You know, how some people love a particular personality and other people don't like a particular personality. Well, that's not that personality that's the issue. It's how you interpret it, how you see it. The same with the needles. You know, I would look at a needle and, you know, I'm a little bit indifferent to it now, but I'm certainly not looking forward to it. Whereas a drug addict is looking forward to it. So it's not the needle, it's your thought pattern around that person, event. So when you realize, so when you feel really stressed, or you're dwelling on something, you can actually then sort of say to yourself, hang on, why am I feeling this way? Where are my feelings coming from? And if you think it's your boss or your kids because they're running around, or it's because you're locked in the house, it's not. It's your thoughts around that situation. So change your thoughts and then change your reality. So think of it as thoughts come and go. It's like, imagine a river flowing, and the river is your mind, and the fish in the river are your thoughts, and there's millions of fish, and you're fishing, you know, and you pull one out and you think, no, it's not the right size, I'm going to throw it back again, I'm just going to let that one go because that's not the one I want. So let's find the thought I do want. And so you just sort of, you know, you get, and we all do it. We all get the thought that pops into our heads, and we sort of say, oh, where'd that come from? I can't believe I'm thinking that way.
That is just the most beautiful kind of metaphor, isn't it, of visualizing those fish. One of the things that I do, and I do a lot of meditation, it really helps me. And in that process of meditation, there's lots of thoughts that come in, and you can judge them. And what I tend to do is I tend to thank my brain for the thought, and then I physically see if it's not a thought that I want, if it's negative, or I don't want to deal with it at that particular point, it's not relevant. And what I tend to do is, in my mind, is I open a big filing cabinet and put it in the filing cabinet and shut the filing cabinet if it's a thought that I want to come back to later. If it's a thought that I don't want, I tend to visualize myself burying it into the ground and then putting the soil on top of it.
Yes.
And it works. It absolutely works.
Absolutely does work. It is amazing.
Put the fish back, put that thought back if you don't want it.
Yes. And think about your resilience as a bank account, putting deposits and withdrawals into it. So how are you feeding your resilience? What are you depositing in there? Are you depositing, you know, really good affirmations about yourself? Are you finding all the really good things? A lot of the issues we have in life is because we don't feel that we're good enough, that we're not enough, that we're not lovable, that we're, you know, not good at things. And if we then, so if we start telling ourselves, it's going back to this subconscious mind, start feeding it the really good stuff, start depositing good things. So then when you need to make a withdrawal because something is, you know, like we have at the moment, we need to pull on some of those resources, your bank account is nice and big and fat because, you know, you've put all those really good things in there, so you can afford to take a few withdrawals.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So those are the thought storms. Tell us about thought storms, because this is something we've spoken about recently, and that again creates this amazing kind of image, doesn't it? The thought storm. I love it.
Yeah, well, you know, they do say that depression is about looking back on the past, and anxiety is about, you know, worrying about the future, and it's about looking right now. But thought storms are always really interesting because we all do it, and we all get a situation, and our mind wants to make sense of it, and our mind wants to protect us. So we then start looking at all these scenarios, and what was just a little thing then starts building into a big thing. And it's, again, it depends on your mindset and depends on what you're focusing on and which thoughts to grab hold of. But for example, you're meeting a friend for lunch. You're waiting in the cafe or the restaurant for the friend, and you know it's now 3 o'clock. That's when you were meeting, and they're not here. So you're quite patient about it, thinking, oh, they probably delayed. Then 20 minutes later, your thought pattern is thinking, well, why? They haven't even rung me. What's happened? And then you go in one of two ways. You either go into the I'm really concerned, I need to get hold of them. What's happened? Because your mindset is compassion. Or you're in a different mindset and you're thinking, how dare they? How rude is that?
Yeah.
And then that just explodes. So if you are in that mindset of, how rude is that? I can't believe it. Next time they ask me to go out, etc., etc., and you just end up on this story, this sort of route, and I always call it going down the rabbit hole. You just go deeper and deeper, and we've all done it when we've come out in meetings and we didn't say the right thing at the right time, and we beat ourselves up about it. And we have these self-imposed rules. I recently spoke to somebody who was getting stressed because children at home hadn't actually managed to mop the floor every evening like she always does. And this was stressing her out. And, and I said to her, well, who made the rule? Well, I did. Okay. So you've made a rule that you're not complying with, and now you're beating yourself up for not complying with the rule that you made in the first place. So change the rule.
There are I'm speaking as a person who never mops the floor. But yeah, there are so many of those little things, and those things that you've decided that are important and that you've got to do, and the time that you don't do it, you just go round in that awful kind of procrastination spiral, don't you? Of,
yes,
I've done it, but now I don't have the energy to do it because I'm involved in the thought process, and it just gets worse and worse. Absolutely.
Yeah, it can be debilitating and very limiting.
Yes, absolutely. And so the fish thing has completely blown my mind. I absolutely love that. That's a really practical thing that we can do around resilience, pulling out the right fish at the right time, and putting it back if it's not the fish that kind of serves you.
Yeah.
About resilience in a practical sense. How can we deal with it, so that people can leave this session with some practical things that they can do in order to boost their resilience? Because we're talking to leaders today, and the people that are watching this are largely leaders, and they're going to need to boost their own resilience, because having that strong foundation, being a resilient leader, is really important, but also the resilience of the people in their team, and within our context of the Army Cadet Force, and the resilience of young people as well.
Okay, so one of the things that humans really have a fear of is rejection. We have a great need to belong and to be an active part of any sort of group or tribe. And quite often as we're growing up, we are born to learn. We don't have that fear of rejection when we're first born. No baby ever worries about having two chins or chubby knees or anything. They're lovable. They just they love the attention and everything else. But we learn that as we get older, that actually we need to achieve, we need to belong, we need to do anything we can to get things right, and parents, teachers, society sort of put some limiting beliefs in us that actually we shouldn't get things wrong, and that limits us, because it means that we don't go and try things, but and it gives us those unhelpful beliefs. So what we need to do is overcome those, and to be able to bounce back, we need to see everything as a learning journey. We need to fail before we achieve. You would never, none of us would be walking if toddlers gave up when they kept falling over.
Yeah.
They were trying to learn to walk, they were trying to learn to talk and feed themselves, and potty training, the whole thing, because at that age there is no fear of failure. It's something we've learned. And if we've learnt it, we can unlearn it. So when we have this sort of gut feeling about worrying about whether we're going to fail, whether we're going to be good enough, if you actually compare that gut feeling of fear with a gut feeling of excitement, they're actually very similar. So if you change the words that you are giving yourself, so it's not fear, it's excitement. I want to go and do this, so I'm not going to fear it, I'm going to feel excited about it. And that gives you a completely different perspective, because much of our resilience is all around our bounce back ability, but it's all about the words and the stories that we give ourselves. So if we change those words and pictures, and it's very important in, with cadets, is sort of, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know how well you're going to do something. You can't future pace it. You can't decide that you're going to be rubbish at something or you're going to be good at something, because until you do it, you don't know. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there. It doesn't matter how you fail or how you don't achieve. Remember, don't set yourself those standards and then beat yourself up against them. So once we understand all of that, we can actually see life as a game.
Yeah.
See life as a game, as a game to play. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, but they're tiny little battles, and it's little things each day. And, you're going to move on to the next moment and the next thought and the next thing. So it's about letting go, taking from your experience. There's a good saying that experience is not about what happens to us. It's about what we do with what happens to us. So every experience doesn't need to feed into our future. Sometimes we have experiences that we just say, you know what, it doesn't serve me, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to let it go, not dwell on it. And we shouldn't keep things alive, because if they're in our thoughts, they're alive. We feel them if they're there. So another good example is, we've all done something really embarrassing in our lives. And quite often, we remember those things. We keep them in our minds. But if you say to a good mate of yours where you did something stupid when you were out in the bar one night or something, do you remember when I did that? It was so embarrassing. They will either say, oh no, that was funny. Or they might say, no, I haven't got a clue. I don't remember that at all. And you keep it alive for you, but nobody else knows it, because they saw a different thing. They saw a different reality.
Yes.
So your embarrassments and your fears they're yours, they're nobody else's. So if you change your mindset, you change the words and pictures in your mind, then you don't need to bring them forward with you. You can let them go, and therefore you become more resilient.
So one of the things that I was going to say was that we live in a very competitive world. If you go onto social media, it's very image based. We're looking at people who are putting stuff on there, showing the amazing things that they've done. So it's very competitive. I've always been fairly sporty, fairly active. I haven't for quite a period of time, because I had my daughter and life, etc., and the focus on her. And I've recently gone back into doing a lot of fitness, and my chosen form of fitness is CrossFit. And there's this sort of myth about CrossFit, about it being incredibly difficult and really challenging, and for people who are slightly insane, and that's probably true. But actually, you do these workouts, and there are people that are better than you, that are faster than you, that are lifting more weights than you. And it's very easy in that scenario to kind of sit there and go, well, I'm just failing. But what I cottoned on to throughout this process was that the only competition I have is with myself.
Yes.
And I can choose to have that competition with myself, or I can choose to not have that competition with myself. It's purely about me making myself better. And that might be in the CrossFit sphere or in my work, etc., etc. I am not comparing myself to anybody else. And I think resilience is that as well, because we all compare ourselves to other people. We all do it. But the reality is, decide who it is you're going to be as a person, and then just have that competition with yourself, and not overthinking what everybody else thinks of you. If they're lifting they're faster, or they're lifting the bigger weight, or they're better at their job, or they're better at running their detachment, or whatever it is. I think is also part of resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a saying that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
So enjoy what you're doing. When you say, you know, those people are better than me, and, you know, at some point they weren't. At some point they were on the same journey.
Yes.
So it's because they've kept going, and it's that resiliency that has actually got them where they are. They haven't given up. And it's about being a little bit better today than you were yesterday. So are you always slightly better? You know, and some days you won't be, but that's okay. You know, we have this concept in today's society that we should all feel brilliant all of the time. But life doesn't work that way.
You're right.
It's not possible to do that. So if you're having a bad day, and we all have them, mainly because we get this thought storm in our head about all the things that are going wrong rather than all the things that are going right. But even when you do that, just accept that as being part of being human. That's what we do. So don't make the decisions. Don't sort of beat yourself up about it. Just get a cup of tea and watch a movie. Do something that just relaxes you. And it's about letting go of those thoughts, not creating more of them. And we get in a thought storm because we try and solve problems. And most of the time, they're not problems that either we can solve or we need to solve. So when you find yourself sort of going round and round in circles and not thinking about anything, sit in the garden, read a book, listen to some music. You know, some people meditate, some people do mindfulness, fitness, whatever it is, whatever your thing is. But just let those thoughts flow by like the fish in the river. Just let them go, cast them back into the river, throw them back in, let them go away, because there's much better thoughts to come.
I absolutely 100% agree with that. So listen, in a second, I'm just going to recap what we've spoken about today. Was there anything else that you wanted to kind of finally end on? That the image of the fish in the river is perfect for me. But I just wanted to ask you, Dawn, if there was anything else that you just wanted to tell people, to express.
I want to read something that's I've got in a book here. It was Writings of an Anglican Bishop, and it's about changing the world. And this is what it says: when I was young and free and my imagination had no limits, I dreamed of changing the world. As I grew older and wiser, I realized the world would not change. And I decided to shorten my sights somewhat and change only my country. But it too seemed immovable. As I entered my twilight years, in one last desperate attempt, I sought to change only my family, those closest to me, but alas, they would have none of it. And now here I lie on my deathbed and realise, perhaps for the first time, that if only I changed myself first, then by example I may have influenced my family, and with their encouragement and support I may have bettered my country, and who knows, I may have changed the world.
Perfect. Gosh, that's quite an emotional, that's brilliant. I won't add anything to that other than to say that resilience is about bounce back ability. Try and say that with your teeth in. Bounce back ability, and that it's about being able to do that time and time and time again. It's based around changing your mindset and recognizing that those thoughts that come into your head are the thoughts that you create. It's about finding a way to deal with those, the fish in the river, and anything that you can kind of create in your mind as an image to help you deal with the many thoughts and finding the ones that are positive, and not beating yourself up about it. Not beating yourself up about it, because we are all human at the end of the day, and these thoughts come in and they go, and we are, the sheer fact that we're human makes us brilliant, and the fact that we're here, and certainly for guys that are within the Army Cadet Force, we are doing absolutely amazing things, and that's the one thing to hold on to. You are already doing amazing stuff. So listen, Dawn, thank you so much for joining us. You are so wise, and we are so grateful to you, and tapping into your wisdom has been absolutely phenomenal. We've done this interview, but we've also had some seminars with Dawn over the last couple of weeks, and they have been absolutely life-changing for people. So Thank you so much. We will keep in touch with you and tap into your wisdom again. And that ends the first IoT Leadership Matters, where we tap into the wisdom of leaders, leadership experts, great thinkers, and inspiring humans. We will have more over the coming weeks and in the future. And please make sure that you join us. Take care and goodbye.